A guten Erev Shabbos, everybody. Rabbi Schwartz, Ephraim Schwartz, calling you here in the rainy city of Carmiel, in the rainy country of Eretz Yisrael, where we're having so much rain this year, so much gishmei bracha, rains of blessing that just doesn't seem to stop, except, of course, when I get in and out of my car with my tourists, which is absolutely amazing and wild. But Baruch Hashem, we have that bracha as well. But now it's raining Friday, Shabbos, I'm home, and it's so nice to hear it outside. And Mir Hashem, that means that we're going to have lots of full rivers and streams that we'll be able to hike and trail through this summer. And I also want to thank my incredible nephew, Moshe Zimberg, and his wife, Shana, on sponsoring this weekly video in honor of Moshe's birthday. Happy birthday to you, Moshe. And may you and your wife live bis hindert and zwanzig with good gesund and good health and nachas from your children and many more children, and shalom bayis in all areas, refuahs for all of those in your family that need to have refuah shleimas, and the Mir Hashem, the schus of this Torah should go and stand for you with all the great chesed that you and your family do, and the Torah that you go ahead and inspire. And talking about inspiring Torah, we are getting ready for Pesach. Quick plug, getting ready for Pesach means you have to start cleaning, but it also means you have to start getting your mind ready into the Pesach mode. And what better way with not only one, but two great books that you should get for Pesach if you don't have them yet. We have Rabbi Schwartz's most enjoyable book that you'll ever read about Pesach. It's a little bit outdated picture of fat Rabbi Schwartz. And we have book number 2 that I put out last year, which is, of course, the next most enjoyable book that you'll ever read about Pesach. And we have both of these books have different chapters from different insights that I've written. It's funny, it's entertaining, it's inspiring. Just to give you some of the chapters in here, we have divided the 5 different books here on Shabbos Agadol, on the exile, on the Makos, Pesach Seder, redemption. Some of the great chapters: kosher for Passover? Aniviata, kidding around, addicts, the Jets, and the Jews, the worst Jew ever, other people's problems, Animal House, great insights, by the way, on the Makos, and just cool stuff here. The Holy Prophet, Eliyahu Hanavi, Jewish trip planning. So these are great books. You should get them. They're sitting in my brother-in-law's house in Muncie right now. He wants to ship them out. You can't get them in the store, so only from Rabbi Schwartz. By sending me a message, sending me an email, rabbischwartz@yahoo.com. Message me, WhatsApp me, and we will get them out to you. It's 1 for 20, 2 for 36. A great thing, and the money goes to help support my shul. So that is our introduction to a rough week that we've had this week. Unfortunately, as you know, as everybody knows, after my video last week, we were told before Shabbos over here about the passing of the Gadol Hadar, Reb Chayim Kanievsky. What a blow. It was an hour before Shabbos, and after I spoke last week, and my video, and I heard about this, we talked about Yom Yerushalayim and Purim Yerushalayim and the significance of Yerushalayim, right? It just struck me. I'll share with you a thought from last week that I had. One word came into my mind: Migdash Melech Ir Melucha. The holy Migdash of Hashem, of the city of Melucha. And again, this was Yom Yerushalayim, the day of Yerushalayim, of the Ir Melucha. And we all focus on Yerushalayim, on Shushan Purim, which was established to remember Yerushalayim. Kumi tzi'i mitoicha hafecha, get up and rise up from the Purim. Ravloch sheves be'emek habacha, we're sitting in the valley of tears, but it's not just sheves be'emek habacha, it is Shabbos, right? That's what we're going into. And when we heard about the deep tear, the emek of the tears and the crying of the passing of Chayim Kanievsky on that day of V'nahapachu, right? Then we realized something incredible. And if you remember what I spoke about last week, how the whole Gullus and the whole America and everything, and it's all, we have to put it all aside and just focus on Yerushalayim, because that's really where the Geula, that's what the idea of Purim is, to get to that stage. It hit me afterwards that we can't even rely on our Torah anymore. You know, we used to feel good about Gullus. It's not so bad. We still have Lakewood. We have Torah like we've never had it before. And we have Mir. We have Panovich. We have great yeshivas. We have Reb Chayim Kanievsky. And Hashem's telling you, you know what? You don't have any of that either. Without Yerushalayim, you don't have anything. Ki mitzion teitzei Torah. Torah only comes when we have the Beis HaMikdash. It's all fake. All the Torah that we're learning, just like all the mitzvahs and chutzlars, I always tell people, are not real. It's meant to be kept here in Eretz Yisrael with the Beis HaMikdash to shine the light out. Even the Torah that we have Unless we have our eyes to Yerushalayim, it's meaningless. Unless we go into, and Hashem is taken right before, on this day that we're focusing on Yerushalayim, He's taken that last bastion of Torah of Chayim Kanievsky from us. And then we'll all say, you know what, now we need the Geula. There's nothing left for us. And then we'll have Karva al Nafshi Geula. Then we will have Chodesh Nisan, the month of Geula. So this was something I shared last week. And then I come to this week's Parsha. And this week we have a special reading, the Parsha of Parah-Aduma. Parah-Aduma is an incredible Parsha because it's the Taharasan of Bnei Yisrael. But you know what I thought about? It's just something mind-blowing. We skip from this week's Parsha, which also talks about, and you'll read this in my email if you haven't subscribed, rabbischwartz@yahoo.com, but you'll read about how the passing of Nadav v'Avihu, which were greater than Moshe and Aaron, in this week's Parsha. And Hashem says, Bekrovai Kodesh v'Achabed al Pneim, I will go ahead and be honored amongst the nation if you go ahead and see what din I have with taking my holiest and closest people. But there's something else even deeper, because we read Parshas Parah, and the Gemara, and right after the Parsha of Parah, the Parsha that we don't read, it tells us about the passing of Miriam. And Rashi over there on the spot says, why is the passing of Miriam close to the Parah-Aduma? Lama nismecha Parshas Miriam says Miriam la Parshas Parah-Aduma. Why is it close? Lomer lecha ma Parah-Aduma mechaperes af misa tzaddikim mechaperes. Just like the Parah-Aduma provides atonement, also the death of tzaddikim provide atonement. Wow. We read Parshas Parah, and we're going to read about how we have to get purified with the Parah-Aduma for the Beis HaMikdash. And we have something else instead. We had a real Parah-Aduma. We had a Misa of the Tzaddik Hadar this Shabbos, this past week. The Shabbos that we're entering Sunday morning, the week of Parshas Parah. Hashem took the Misa of Tzaddikim. And the Misa of Tzaddikim, the death of Tzaddikim, that has the same atonement. We all experience this atonement, this purity of the death of a Tzaddik, like the Parah-Aduma. And we have to understand why. What is it? The connection, the Parah-Aduma, how does that purify from the Tumas HaMeis? It's even more strange because Parah-Aduma purifies from the death, the Tameh, the impurity that comes from death. And then you're telling me that the death of a Tzaddik, which is Tameh technically, also purifies from the Tumah of death. How does that work? What is that about? What is that all about? So there's an incredible letter that I stumbled upon this week, and just it was in my thoughts. A letter from the Baal Hatanya to Reb Yitzchak of Berditchever. And it's not often that we find, a letter between two Gedolei Hadar, Reb Yitzchak Berditchever, the Baal Hatanya, one letter to the other. And this is a letter that the Baal Hatanya wrote to Reb Yitzchak on the passing of Reb Yitzchak's son, Reb Meir. And the letter starts off, right? Rabbi, in the Tanya, it goes in the Igeris, it says, he's writing to his Mechutin, Ragoyna, before some Isha, Lakim Kodesh Hashem, Ner Yisrael, Omad Aimini, Patish HaChazak, right, the great hammer, Morain Rabbeinu, Levi Yitzchak, Berditchever, Minishmas Eden, the Av Bezdin of Kehilas Kodesh, Berditchever, to go ahead and console him. And he asks a question. He says, Lama Nismecha, to Parshas Parah, to there, because just like the Parah-Aduma and Misas Miriam. He goes, and the truth of the matter is, he goes, why is Parah-Aduma Machaper? How does that work? Why? And if you do this, you want to talk about something that's being atoning, Parah-Aduma really isn't even an atonement. It's a kapara. Parah-Aduma is a purification process. But if I want to talk about kapara, and I want to talk about things that are sacrifices, it would seem that you should put it close to the carbon chatas, right? That's an atonement. And in fact, the carbon chatas is brought in the Beis HaMikdash, right? He noticed, and it's all about atonement. He goes, Parah-Aduma is not an atonement. Parah-Aduma really is something that is a purification. In fact, it's not even brought in the Beis HaMikdash. How about that? The Parah-Aduma is brought chutz legimel machanais. It's brought outside of the three different camps of the Jewish people. And that's where it's born. And that's where it's sprinkled facing, looking at the Pesach HaOhel, but all of it is really done outside. And what is Parah-Aduma work, and why is that? Now, is it really even called a atonement? It's called Mei Chatas, but Rashi tells us Chatas doesn't mean it's a sin offering. In fact, what does Chatas mean? He says it's a purification. It's also chitui. It's a purification process. There's also something else interesting that he points out, and the Baal Hatanya goes on at a much more mystical level. I'm going to try to take that Kabbalah stuff and just bring it down to something that spoke to me, and I think that we can understand and appreciate about Reb Chaim. Right? He says that an offering, a carbon, the way it works is it only works on a shogeg, an unintentional sin, a sin that we do unintentionally. Then the chatas can go ahead and atone for it. And he says the reason really is because when we sin by mistake, really our inside is pure and it's holy, and it's the animal part of us that really sins. They made a mistake, it took us over, but that's not really who we are. So we take that animal, we bring it up, and it can go up to Shemaim, and it goes back to the source where that blockage took place, and it gets rid of that. It returns that back again. However, if a person sins intentionally, then it's kares. He can get cut off from Hashem. Right? An intentional sin, that really got to my core. And there is only one way to go ahead and to purify your core. And that's if you go beyond this world, beyond even the upper worlds or the kisei, where we're told the throne of Hashem has different animals on it, right? That's the lower level, right? But the higher level is what she calls as klipas noga. That's above. That's really touching the light of Hashem itself, right? That is outside of all of the three camps. Right? That's when you've gone behind the three different levels of impurity that he describes that are more animalistic drives, desires and drives. This is something that hit the core. When you hit the core, you've got to go all the way up to the core. And the way to go up to the core, he says, is what Parah-aduma does. Parah-aduma says we go outside of all of that, and we take the gaiva, the ego that a person has, and we take the eitz eres, and we take even the humility, which is also about me. I'm being humble, I'm minimizing, but there's still something left. It's me. And we put that all in water. And it's fire and it's water. It's really what the world was created from, Ish and Mayim, those two things. And we put them together, and then we reach literally heaven and earth. We connect, we tap into that higher light that's above. And then we get rid of death. Because really, what is death? Death means that I'm not connected to I'm not connected to the eternal source of life. Death came from the beginning of the world. From Adam Arishon brought death into the world once he sinned by that original sin. And now there's death in the world, and now we're not totally connected, and we need to go ahead and create this world and build this world and try to accomplish as much as we can. But to get back to the real source, right? That's what Parah-aduma does. And even Parah-aduma, when it connects us to that site, it's only really till we have that 10th Parah-aduma, till the Melech HaShiach, that we do that. Because we're going above the physicality, above the animals. We're getting it all down. And that's how we connect to Hashem. And that's how we remove the tumah entirely from this world. We get to a world that's perfect. And that's why it's forever. And that's why it's only done by Moshe, who was negated himself entirely. He was an Ish Elohim. He was that light from Hashem. We don't have the Parah-aduma today. And the truth is, we don't even have, it's interestingly enough, Parah-aduma, there's no even mitzvah to go ahead to purify yourself from the tumah of death. Even in the times of the Beis HaMikdash, only if you wanted to be Ola Regel, but there's no obligation. But it says that it has to be Mishmeres Tamid. We always had that ashes over there in case somebody wants to. You want to reboot the entire system. That's there for us. We have to know that we have the ability to reboot that system. We don't have that today, but you know what we have instead? We have something called Torah. Torah is also given with Aish and with Mayim. It's with fire and water. It's unbelievable. And it's this ability, Torah is domet to water, Ein Mayim Ela Torah, and it's also is given with fire. It has that ability to rise above this entire world. Torah is eternal. Torah can go ahead and bring us all the way up to the highest spheres where we're just drawing that energy, that light from Hashem. We're going beyond this world. When we study, when we immerse ourselves, that's what we're doing. That's what Reb Chayim Kanievsky did. Right? Reb Chayim Kanievsky was literally a walking Sefer Torah. I mean, I heard this terrible hesped that just missed the boat. You know, the secular Jew in Israel. He said, you know, Reb Chayim Kanievsky is incredible and humble, and his diligence, the way he would learn all day long. Imagine if he would have put his strength into finding a cure for cancer, into finding a vaccine, into science. Imagine somebody with that genius, what would have happened? And the guy missed the boat. He missed part of the boat because, you know, vaccines and cures for cancer and engineering, that's all trying to still work within this world. What Reb Chaim is doing is his Torah brought the world up to a much higher level. He brought light down the world. I believe, and we're told that the Gadol Hadar right, brings his influence into the entire world. In the era of Reb Chayim Kanievsky, the last 20, 30, 40 years, we've had more Torah than everything anywhere else in the world. The translation of the Schottenstein Yerushalmi, which watch my video, right, the Talmud, the learning, the Daf Yomi, the Shiurim, the classes, it's all because that light, he opened up that channel from Shemayim that brought down this Torah with his diligence in Torah. And that's bringing the world closer to the Geula. When a tzaddik dies, it does that exact same thing. It goes ahead and it makes us realize that we have that light. He brought that channel. It's on us now. We can learn, we can expand, and it will bring us back to that original light. Unbelievable. This is Parshas Parah. And you know what? One more last thing here. I know we're going a little overtime today. One last thing. Parshas Parah is always attached to Parshas HaChodesh, Parshas HaGeula. Right? The Parsha, when we talk about this new month of Geula, it always has to be close. Like last week, we didn't read one of the 4 Parshas because there is no break between those two things. As soon as we are pure, as soon as we realize that we have that purity, that control, that level of holiness, then we can take it straight to the Geula. We are holding on the precipice of the Geula right now. I've been talking about this for years, but I feel it more than ever now with this passing. Hashem gave us the purity of the Parah Aduma. We just need to push ourselves to connect to that light, to fix the entire world. And Amir Hashem, we will see the Geula like we've never seen. We've been crying and mourning and waiting, but now our eyes are focused only on Yerushalayim, only on the Holy Land, only on Eretz Yisrael, and only on bringing that light of Hashem down. May we see that Geula very soon. Bekarav b'yameinu. In our days, this year, Pesach, we should be in the Beis HaMikdash with the Carbon Pesach. Have a fantastic week. Subscribe to my weekly email, and don't forget to message me to get the books for Pesach. Good Shabbos.